Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever it is, wherever you are. Thank you for listening and welcome to the first ever episode of the Backlog Busting Project for March 3rd, 2015. My name is Wes. With me is my best friend, Randy.
Oh man, this is a long time coming. I'm excited.
Yeah,
first one. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, just as a brief introduction, there's going to be a more in-depth introduction at our website, backlogbusting.com, later. But for right now, all you need to know about us is we're two best friends who have history doing gaming content for the internet and very, very large gaming backlogs. And we finally found a way to fuse those two things together and take control of our backlogs. Because I don't know about... I do know about you. But I have 400 games that I have access to. Something, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but like 260 of those I have not even played yet.
Yeah, I didn't want to do the math. I own almost 1,500 hard copy games. Add in all the games that have been downloaded. I'm close to 2,000. I didn't want to figure out what games I haven't beat. Yeah. But basically, we are two guys that have a problem.
Yeah.
We can't get ourselves to just finish games, so we came up with this idea to give us deadlines, so we have to finish games.
Yep.
For you guys.
Yep.
Good or bad.
Yep. And talk about our thoughts on them, and
yes.
That's where this comes in, and the blog. And if that sounds like fun to you, well then, hey, come along with us. If not, well, there's plenty of other content out there for you to enjoy. So, that being said, we are actually going to start off by looking at some of the games we are going to add back on top of the pile.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously we're doing a podcast to get rid of our backlog, so why not add to it first?
Yes.
Because that's how smart we are.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a segment we like to call Play or Nay. And we'll jump right in and start with the first game on our docket. That is Scream Ride for the Xbox One and the Xbox 360. It will be releasing today, actually.
So I own a 360. I don't own a One yet. So I don't follow Xbox news as much.
Yeah.
So I hadn't heard much about this game until, we had to come up with release games that we wanted to talk about today. And we looked up Scream Ride. And I have to say, I want this game.
Yeah.
Not for a backlogging purpose, because there doesn't look like there's a finish and an end. It is just a mess around with a theme park and see how crazy of a ride you can make.
Yep.
Whether it's possible physics-wise or not. And it seems like the game wants you to break the physics.
Yeah. From the trailers and whatnot, yeah. Break the physics and fling as many bodies as humanly possible. That sort of thing. We saw, destructible environments, all that good stuff. Crazy corkscrews. It looks like Roller Coaster Tycoon on steroids.
Yes.
And that pings parts of me that have not been pinged for quite some time.
And honestly, I mean, there are definitely games like this that look like they have a great premise, might not be the greatest of games.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of more interested in like a Scream Ride 2 if they start adding in a railroad. A Roller Coaster Tycoon element to it, where now you're making these rides and then you make money off of them and you can build more that way. But as far as just kind of a tech demo and a goofy one-off where you can play it from time to time, you don't need a lot of time into it. This is definitely a play for me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a play for me too. Although I will say we did only look at a couple trailers for this. Who knows? There might be a bit more of that
absolutely. And if there is,
Roller
it's a
Coaster
bigger play.
Tycoon stuff in this version, as opposed to the next version.
All that would be is a bigger play.
Indeed. Same here. So, yeah. The next game on the docket here is a PlayStation exclusive. It's going to be Helldivers, coming out on the 4th for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, and PlayStation Vita. And oh my god.
Yeah, this looks good.
Yeah, this looks amazing. It's, we were watching all the content we could, and we kept looking at it, and all we could say was Starship Troopers.
Yes,
Starship Troopers.
This is Starship Troopers, the video game. It's not only Starship Troopers, a video game. This is Starship Troopers, the co-op video game.
The 4-player co-op video game.
Because this is like a top-down, twin-stick shooter that you can play with 3 of your friends.
Yeah.
Against aliens. It looks like it has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
I love twin-stick shooters. I love all that kind of stuff. A buddy of mine, Johnny, and I used to play Dead Nation.
There we go.
Thank you. Dead Nation all the time, and so I love those kind of games, and you get so much playability, and now you get 4 players into it. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is easily a play for me.
Yeah,
for sure.
Very much a play here as well. Just, it looks fun, difficult in all the right ways.
Yes.
And 4-player co-op. I mean, you have to actively be trying to fuck that up. I'm sorry. You really have to actively try to fuck a 4-player co-op game up. And now that I've said that, I'm going to remember the horrors, but
And I will say this, Xbox was kind of the first to really go on the indie scene and get those kind of guys like Super Meat Boy and all of that. PlayStation with their new generation, the PS4s and their indie developers, they've really focused on the indie games that have the co-op.
Yeah.
Because the AAA titles are very against co-op. I mean, there's like Evolve and stuff and Destiny and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But many of the AAA titles are single player, and now you just add Helldivers to a party experience with Towerfall Ascension.
Yeah.
And all of those. And PS4 is a party console to me, and it's this is easily the top of that list.
I think. Well, to kind of, this is probably a discussion we'll have on the blog as well.
Yes.
But to kind of touch on it just briefly while I'm thinking about it, you mentioned the Xbox in the 360 era doing that sort of thing, and now Sony is doing it in the PlayStation 4 era, and I think that's a direct response to basically in the 360 era, Xbox saw Sony getting too big for its britches and took aim. Right. Yeah. And even things out. And then this console generation, Xbox got too big for its britches with the Xbox One DRM stuff that they were like, we're going to shove this down your throats and you're going to like it. And everyone went, fuck you. Yeah. And then PS4 went, well, okay, you guys are going to do the stuff we did when the PS3 launched. Well, we know how to counter that because you guys did it to us with the 360. So we're just going to do the same stuff. See ya! And we'll kind of get into that a bit more later on with one of the news roundup stories later, and then again on the blog. But to get back to Helldivers, definite play here for me, as iterated, play for you as well.
And so speaking of Xbox versus PlayStation, we missed one, and we're going to talk about it now. We have a Nintendo exclusive.
Yeah.
For the Wii U and the 3DS, it is Mario versus Donkey Kong Tipping Stars. And the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series is very puzzle-based. And it's kind of... I remember playing the original one. I want to say it was for... It was the DS or the SP.
I believe it was on... I want to say that series did not start until the DS.
So, either one. But I remember playing the original. And it had the old, Donkey Kong music and stuff like that. So, it's very old school in the graphics department, not a lot of like shiny new things, and like I said, very puzzle based. But I like the fact that Nintendo is finally realizing that they can't be such stingy bastards when it comes to their games, and they're allowing you, if you buy it on the 3DS, they're going to give you the Wii U version for free,
and vice versa.
Yeah, so that's awesome. But to me, puzzle games on a handheld are perfect. It's not as big of a play for me as Helldivers or Scream Ride, but for me, I love puzzle games, so this is easily a play for me.
Yeah. I'm not too big on the puzzle games, and then the other thing, while I'm thinking about it, this game comes out on March 5th.
Sorry.
For both platforms. No worries. That's what I'm here for. But I'm not too big into the puzzle games, but I do remember seeing a lot about this series, as it started, and then also coming into today with Tipping Stars. With them finally starting to kind of realize, hey, this online stuff is something we should be paying attention to. Stuff like Miiverse integration, cross-buy. Let's call it what it is. It's cross-buy, like Sony's does. For, buy the Wii U version, get the 3DS version, and vice versa. And they need to start doing more of that, or, they're not looking so hot console-wise, Again, though, I'm not too into this specific type of puzzle game, so I'm actually going to go very, very slight nay on this. I like Mario, I like Donkey Kong, etc., but I'm just not sure about this. So I'm going to go nay on that, and that's going to bring us to the last one we're going to cover here on the podcast. That's going to be Hotline Miami 2: Wrong Number, for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, and PC, coming out on March 10th. This is the sequel to Hotline Miami, of course. And it's interesting.
It's over the top.
Yeah, definitely over the top. It's got that neon, and make your skull bleed
now,
sort of aesthetic.
We will throw this right out there to begin with. Neither of us have played the original Hotline Miami, and we'll get to that in a minute. So we have no idea what to expect. I can't tell you much about whether the controls are great in the first one or anything like that. Yeah. But this looks fun. We watched a couple things on this, and I've seen gameplay of the first Hotline Miami. It definitely looks fun. It's another one of those games where you can pick up and play it for 15 minutes if you have to. It's perfect for a small gameplay session, or I'm sure if you want to bust through the whole game, I'm sure you could do that too. It looks really fun. So this is a play for me, barring our announcement a little bit later. But for me, it kind of has an old Super Nintendo. I won't say Super Nintendo. I'll say an old Genesis feel to it. Yeah, with better graphics and an arcadey kind of feel to it. For sure. I'm sorry, I'm just getting a chuckle out of Nintendo of America, the Super Nintendo era, being pitched Hotline Miami, and I'm just imagining every single executive just having a heart attack and dying. Well, they would just make the blood green and call it good.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that might work. So, I do like the kind of game Hotline Miami is. And again, I've played a little bit of it, not enough to really make any judgments on it. So I'm gonna go just like you are. I'm gonna say play on this, conditional to how I like the first game, to kind of give a little bit of what the announcement is about Hotline Miami for later. So that will conclude Player Nay for this week.
It concludes
this episode.
This concludes Player Nay only because I believe both of us believe that just because heists are announced before our next podcast doesn't mean that they're going to come out. Or I would love to talk about that. But I have no faith in being able to play heists on the PS4 like I would love to, though they are announced to come out in the next 2 weeks. So I would love to have a review next podcast.
Of heists on Grand Theft Auto Online for Grand Theft Auto 5.
My prediction right now is I won't be able to.
Oh, man. So, if you want to hear our thoughts on some of the other releases coming out over the next 2 weeks, and there are a lot of them, holy shit, we will have a brief article on it on the blog, backlogbusting.com. So, look forward to that. And now, that brings us to the meat of our little, project here. And that is talking about the games we've been playing, on our lists. And we're going to start out with a game we both played. And that is going to be, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, which is on the, PlayStation Network. I do believe it released for, PC as well. I'll have to double check that later. and put it in the show notes. It was developed by Starbreeze Studios, published by 505 Studios. 505 also published the console ports of Terraria, however the hell you say that. And it was originally released on August 7th, 2013. It is a twin-stick puzzle platformer, which is an interesting combination of genres there.
And it's a different kind of twin stick. Like, usually with twin stick, you're moving with one and you're turning one guy with the other.
Yeah.
In this game, your left stick controls the older brother.
And the right
stick controls the younger brother, which I will say was very interesting. It made puzzles. It added a new level to just like most of the puzzles in this game are very standard. Mm-hmm. They didn't do a lot new as far as the puzzles go, but the fact that you then had to wrap your mind around doing it with two sticks, and each brother's corresponding L2 or R2 button was their grip buttons. That's legit. The only things you do is L2, R2, and the sticks.
Yeah,
that's the controls of this game. If you can't figure it out, then I can't help you.
Yeah,
but. Just with two sticks and two buttons, some of the ways they did the puzzles, especially near the end of the game, were masterful.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff that they did where it made my brain go, okay, what do I do? And then,
that eureka moment,
okay.
Oh.
Okay, you can swing.
Yeah.
Okay. Or anything like that. The puzzles were brilliantly done to me.
Yeah. The puzzles were a pretty well done masterclass on puzzle design. I'll say that. It was pretty fun. I didn't really have any moments where I was like, okay, what do I do now? Which actually kind of surprised me because the last puzzle game I played was Eco, and there was a couple times where, I had to stop and look at a guide because I had no idea what the hell I was doing.
Yeah, and I think that's a compliment to these guys. Because the puzzles, I wouldn't say I just breezed through this game, but I never had to look at a guide. It would take a minute or two sometimes just because whether it was I was tired or whatever, I'm just dumb at that point where I just wasn't, like, as a mini spoiler, there's a point in the game where the two brothers are tied to each other.
Right.
And it was more of a comprehension in my head to let go of the correct button to make the right brother swing.
Yeah.
And try to figure out that kind of stuff. But honestly, on top of the puzzles and the way they were put together, for two buttons and two sticks, it controls beautifully. There was only one part in the entire game where I had an issue with the game not registering a jump.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to jump left, and it just made him fall down.
Yeah.
Once in the entire game. And it was, for an indie developer to do that kind of stuff, where I had zero problems with a new control scheme.
Yeah.
Where I'm not used to it, I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah. I had a few more technical missteps than you did. That there were a lot of times where I felt, I would try to do a jump or do something, and the game would go, I don't really feel like registering that button press or what have you. One puzzle in particular, you have, while you're tied together, you have to make 3 separate jump and catches with each brother.
Okay, yeah.
And what would happen is I would get the first brother across, and then I'd be getting the second brother across, and for some reason the second brother just would not grab on, and he'd fall and die. It was before they were tied together, just before they were tied together. So, he would miss the jump, fall to his death, and I'd have to start the entire process over again. And it wasn't a matter of timing, it was just straight up the game was going, oh, you're trying to grab onto that? Meh. So, that did take me out of it for a bit. I want to move on to, from the mechanics to talking a bit about the story of the game. And with that being said, spoiler warning!
I don't think we'll go, super in-depth, but if you've never played the game and you're really excited to play it,
Which you should be, because it's pretty damn good.
I'm sure we'll hint at something that may piss you off. I think, at least myself, we'll try to do our best not to go straight out, this is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
But this game definitely has themes in it that make it as powerful as it is.
Yeah.
And it will be difficult to talk about it without kind of touching on it.
Yeah. So, the game starts out with the younger brother just kind of mourning a loss. His mother drowned.
Yes.
And
in front of him.
In front of him. After he tried to save her in a storm in water, which is like, oh God, that's that sucked to see. And it kind of informs the gameplay a bit, because as a result, the younger brother is aquaphobic.
Yes.
Hates water, cannot swim. So, one of the things you have to do is you have to have him piggyback on the older brother to cross streams and whatnot. And, makes perfect sense. Integrated into the gameplay beautifully. It
wasn't there just to pull at your heartstrings. It legit did something with the game.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, that mechanic was pretty good. And then, so, as he's sitting there mourning, the older brother comes up, and with his father, and the father is stricken ill.
Yes.
So they take the father in the cart to the healer's hut as kind of the tutorial level, where the game shows you, hey, hit L2 to interact with the older brother, R2 to interact with the younger brother, etc. And once you get to the healer's hut, the healer goes, I need the water of life from this tree over here to be able to do anything. This is a rare disease.
So before you go on to that, I just want to touch on that for a second and go a little down a different path, just because I'm curious what your thought is. Mm-hmm. So the healer tells you this, kind of.
Yeah.
Because this game is in a whole
English.
different made-up language.
Exactly.
And I'm just curious what you... to me, it was a very interesting choice. Mm-hmm. I think, for the most part, it made sense. It did make the characters act a little goofy because they had to portray what they were talking about, in a sense. So, of course, they would overact a little bit.
Yeah.
But, at first, I was a little taken aback by it. Just because, we've both played Iku. And, and they don't have English there either, so they just... Yeah. It's something different. So it kind of took me aback for a little bit, but as the game got going and you feel for the characters anyways, and they do a great job with that. Mm-hmm. It's I started thinking about it. I was actually, I think it was a brilliant choice.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. I think if they had gone with English, then the voice actors would have been able to just ride on the English. If that makes sense.
Instead of having to portray an emotion that you have no idea what it is unless you feel that emotion instead of hearing the words.
Yeah. To kind of go back to the start of the game, if you hear the mother going, let go, or hear the kid yelling, in English, I think, the voice actors would have just, not quite has gotten the emotion across because they're trying to get the words just right. If that makes sense.
Yeah, or at least there's a chance that they could have. I wouldn't say that the actors would just do that, but there is a chance. Yeah, for sure. So I think go back to the original point was this whole thing is not in English, but just the way things go are beautifully done. So even though there is no English, you know that the doctor is telling you, listen, I can't help your dad unless we get this herb, and this herb is far away.
It's water, but
But it's far away, and you guys are going to have to go get it, which sets off the whole game. The brothers go on an adventure, even though the beginning of the game is held off by some jackass kid that gets in your way for no apparent reason, and then gets attacked by a poodle.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Great. That was fucking amazing. I cannot. The first thing I did after you get that kid to get basically treed by a poodle is you can go over to him and you hit the interact button, and both the brothers will laugh at him.
I was too busy laughing myself, so I didn't end up doing that.
Well, I was laughing too, but then I went, I wonder what would happen if... Quick.
And they do a lot of that in the game, where you would go, oh, I wonder if this would happen. And a lot of those times where you think something could happen, there's an interaction for it.
Yeah. Just those sorts of little interactions are things that I found drawing me, further and further into the game. Like, one of the other things I enjoyed was the trophies in this game are not necessarily linked to your progress through the game.
They are absolutely not involved in the process of the game, because, as I said, I didn't do a lot of the side stuff, and I got punished for it because I have beaten this game and I have 0 trophies.
Yeah, I think I got like 3 or 4, and it was just by exploring and doing things. Like, I stumbled across one completely by accident.
And that's the kind of the whole point of the game, is they want you to explore and stuff. And I will definitely be replaying this game. I wanted to before we did this podcast, but I'm in the middle of moving and kind of ran out of time to get a second playthrough in. But
yeah, honestly, looking back on this, I think we're going to go, wow, we kind of picked the worst possible time to launch, because I've got a bit of a cold. I've been kind of, if you couldn't tell, I've been coughing a couple times. You're moving.
Well, hey, all we have to say, if you're listening to this podcast, it's only going to get better.
Yeah. It can only go up from here. Anyway, so back to Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. The moment, one of the things that I like most about this game is, and I think we've been kind of dancing around saying it directly, is that the story and the gameplay are integrated so amazingly well.
Yes.
Like, absolutely incredible. One of the main things that I wanted to talk about on this game was, again, that story and gameplay integration, and it's also why I partially gave the spoiler warning, because near the end of the game, how should I put this? We'll just say the brothers get separated.
Yes.
And you are controlling the younger brother, and he is in front of water. And, you can try to wade into the water, and he'll freak out. And, it's raining, he's freaking out, the older brother's nowhere in sight, etc., etc. And if the game does not tell you this, there are no on-screen prompts, nothing. If you hit the older brother's trigger, the left trigger, the younger brother kind of psychs himself up, and he swims by himself for the first time in the entire game.
And it's amazing.
It is amazing.
It's one of those feel-good moments that only video games can do, because you're interacting with it, but you feel for a character, which, like I said, was perfect with the no English, because the way they did it, you knew exactly what he was going through, even though he wasn't saying anything, just the way they did all of the animation and stuff. And yeah, that moment in particular was great. I love that the whole game basically is about family and love.
Yeah.
You meet a troll at one point who is crying and upset about something. Doesn't tell you what at all.
Yeah.
And he kind of helps you along because you help him.
Yeah.
And you go through stuff, and then you help someone else who's stuck in...
Yeah. You help another troll escape, and it turns out...
that they're basically husband and wife. You end up helping someone who is in the middle of a cult thing. Yeah. That was kind of interesting. But it's basically about two brothers that you could definitely tell both had huge hearts and just had a lot of love, and it just was such a feel-good game for the most part.
Yeah.
And they do such a great job. The game's not long at all.
Yeah, I finished it in one sitting.
Yes. And so another reason why I think we both recommend that you have to play this game, because it's not going to take a lot of time.
Yeah.
But it will leave a lasting impression.
Yeah.
And I totally understand why a lot of people wanted this to be Game of the Year in 2013.
Yep.
For sure. It did an amazing job. And like I said, it's one of those games that I will be going back through and playing every so often now that I know what it is all about.
Yeah. Probably a very, very similar situation for me too. It's well executed from start to finish. An amazing story, And I'm actually, the guys behind this game are actually working on another game with EA right now.
And I would love to play it.
Yeah.
Like, when it comes out.
And, I had not played Brothers at the time this game was announced. The new project was announced, and when they showed the teaser for it, I was like, that's it? That's all you're showing? Now that I know the guys who made Brothers are doing this game, the new project, suddenly I'm like, holy shit, I need to know more now.
Yeah. And I think both of us are kind of at a loss for words right now because we're both
wanting to say more.
There's so much to say about this game that I think we're both afraid to say for people that haven't played this game.
Yeah.
Because there's so many moments that change your mood.
Yeah.
As you're playing this game that I don't want to bring up right now.
Yeah.
Because I want you as a listener to feel the same things that I did and be surprised by it. But for sure, if you have played this game and you would like to talk to me or Wes about it, email us, get a hold of us any way you can.
Yeah.
And I would love to talk about it because this game, once we're done with this podcast, Wes, I'm sure you and I will break into this a little bit more. But
yeah. What I was about to suggest is, again, we've got the blog at backlogbusting.com. What might happen is we might we might dedicate the post for this game because we're going to have posts for each game listing what episodes they were discussed on, what our thoughts were, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll turn that post into a discussion platform for people who have beaten the game.
Super spoiler.
Super spoiler zone, yeah. So
that's a good idea, because there's so much in this game that I want to talk about. But for a game that probably takes 2 hours, maybe, if that, to beat, there's so much little things in it that I can't talk about that I want to. So absolutely, check the website, check the blog.
Because,
I will discuss in depth.
It's kind of a fine line we're walking here with this podcast. Because, yes, we do want to discuss fully the games we play. But we also, if we feel a game needs to be played instead of just, experienced instead of just, heard about, I guess is the term I'm looking for. We want people to go play or experience that game, and this is definitely one of those cases.
Yeah, we'll sit here for 30 minutes telling you about controls and color schemes and music and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
who cares?
Which, by the way, the music in this game is fucking amazing.
Everything. I don't think there's one bad thing I can say about this game, other than maybe it's a little short.
Yeah,
but the shortness really worked.
Yeah, because every single second is. Well designed.
There's no, I guess I'm glad it's short because the way they probably would have extended the game is just make puzzles do the same thing over and over and over and over, or make you run farther before you get to the next area or something like that. So they pace this game so well. The music's great. The graphics are great. The story's amazing. The controls, once you kind of get it down, there's a little bit of a learning curve to it, just to get your mind thinking that you have to control 2 people at the same time. But 100% recommend. One of the best games I've played in 2015. I mean, obviously this is the only game I've beaten for this podcast, so it's number 1. But I've been playing some here these 2 months, and easily tops the list of games that I played this year.
Yeah, same here. So I think we've basically said what we can say about Brothers without being a massive spoiler. So we are going to move on we're going to move on to your game, Randy, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about this game, because as people who read what I'm going to do as my introduction post will find out, this is quite possibly my favorite game of all time.
And this is also the game that really got us going in the direction that we've gone of wanting to discuss games.
Yeah.
Because we were coming up with like a YouTube idea or this and that. We were coming up with the 5 games that were most influential to our gaming lives.
And now that you've come out and said that, that's what I'm planning to do as my introduction article, is the 5.
Yes.
So.
And So we were discussing that, and Earthbound definitely... Oh, excuse me, that's the game I've been playing, is Earthbound for the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
It was on your list, and I had the confession that I had never played it.
And my jaw hit the ground with a quickness. And I think I pretty much immediately stopped what I was doing and said, "You go fucking play that game right now."
And 2 years later, here I am finally getting around to playing it.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not playing it on like the Wii U or anything. I do own this game now. I spent quite a bit of money to get it.
Yep.
But okay, so let's get into this.
Yep.
I am, where would you say, 40%, 50%?
Yeah, around there.
Because I think before you said I was about 30, 35, and I played for a couple more hours.
Yeah.
So
I would roughly say that, yeah.
Near half of this game from what you were telling me earlier. And I will say, I will be a little nitpicky in this for now, because we will be talking about it again in 2 weeks, because I do plan on having it finished. So our discussion today will be a little bit more of the nitpicky things I have. But I will say I'm very much enjoying this game.
Yeah.
I do love old school RPGs, but they have some of them, including this one, have not aged well compared to some of them. So going back to play an old school RPG like this and seeing mechanics that aren't as refined as some have been difficult. So let's just get right into it. I will say the graphics for the most part are very clean. I enjoy most of them. Like, just the backgrounds and the characters look great. The battle animations can kiss my butt. They are an acid trip, every single one of them, and they drive me nuts. I have not enjoyed them one bit.
Oh.
But I understand some people would like them, and they're just it's something different.
Yeah.
Because most are just stagnant backgrounds. And
which, I gotta say, to jump in.
Yeah.
Earthbound, and, well, really the Mother series in general, to RPGs, for me, is something different.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the entire appeal of it, because, like, for Earthbound, your main character is sitting there whacking things with a baseball bat, where, or, the other characters are, using a frying pan. That sort of stuff.
And that's what I like.
And you heal with hamburgers.
Yeah, that's what I definitely like about the game. Is it's a modern take on things, and it's very realistic. I mean, yes, your characters have magic and things like that, but it's there's buses, like you said, you're hitting with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
So I definitely like that aspect of it. It is very weird, and in a good way. I'm not going to say it's taken me aback, but there are things in this game that make you go, Did that just happen?
Oh, yeah.
Like, one of my favorite moments that happened to me last night, actually, was going through the desert, and I got lucky to even find it. I'll say that, because you get the roadblock. So it makes you go up and around, so you're fighting all these enemies and stuff. And then I cut down, and I went, well, I wonder what's on the other side of the roadblock. So I started going back, just to kind of see, and it happens that the roadblock is now gone because I've hit the requirements that I needed to do to move on in the game, and ran into these 3 dudes hanging out, just standing there with numbers, and a slot machine that said it was broken. So it told me to go ahead and pull the lever, and they would do it, which they did. They just started spinning.
Thomas Jefferson. Yes.
And it's just stuff like that, where 3 dudes are standing in the middle of a desert, acting as a slot machine. Which, by the way, I hit the jackpot the first try.
Oh, you son of a bitch! Seriously?
And so that, I mean, but it's stuff like that. There's so many small things that I've found in this game, and I'm sure there's several that I've missed.
Oh yeah, like there's a couple that you've missed in the desert itself. And one of them actually gets a callback at the very end of Mother 3, but that's getting way ahead of ourselves. I'm sorry, but
so I mean, it's one of those things where you can get yourself lost, just in small inside jokes or small goofy things that have nothing to do with the game. Okay, so let's get into the nitpicky things just real quick.
Before you do that, again, this is kind of my librarian nature coming through. The stats about this game, it was developed by Ape, which is now known as Creatures, and HAL Laboratory. HAL Laboratory, you might know nowadays, is the guys behind Super Smash Brothers. It was originally released on June 5th, 1995 here in North America. It was released August 27th, 1994 in Japan. It did eventually come to the Wii U Virtual Console. If you own a Wii U and do not own this game and are a fan of RPGs, hit pause right the hell now, go buy that game and come back here.
Yeah. And now let me tell you the things that I don't like about it before we get into the good. Like I said, in 2 weeks, I definitely will probably come back and say how great of a game it is. Because it is. It's very enjoyable. But just like nitpicky things, and like I said, it's because of its age, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But like the main one for me is there hasn't been as many as I thought because it happened so early in the game. The one that I'm going to mention. And it hasn't, like I said, it hasn't happened as often. Maybe it's just because I'm hitting the right spots correctly. But there's a spot in the game where there's a roadblock. And then you have to figure out how to get said roadblock. And while playing the game, I talked to somebody who gave me an object. And I figured at that point that would fix roadblock. And totally got stuck. Nothing else was changing. The entire world was the same.
Yeah.
And it's the only time I've had to look it up. And come to find out that I did it in reverse order.
Yeah.
I needed to talk to him and then go to roadblock. And then on the way back, it would trigger an event and then everything would be fixed.
Yeah.
And that's a product of the times. Super Nintendo RPGs are notorious for things where you have to do point A before point B before point C. And if you go to point B on accident first,
nothing happens.
That never...
Yeah.
If you do point B and then point A, it goes, you never were at point B.
Yeah.
Now you must go to point B.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can get confusing. And that's fine. I understand that. The inventory system is interesting in the fact that you don't have a lot of space, and I enjoy that. But my issue with it is when you go to stores, you don't know what any of it is.
Yeah.
Like, you understand after a while. Once it's in your inventory, you can do the little help icon, and it'll tell you what it is, or how much health it will bring back, or any status effects it'll fix. But when you're in the store, you have no clue. And I have went through the game buying very little. I've basically gone through and just go to the department store at every town and upgraded my weapons and armor. And that's all I've bought.
Yeah.
Because I am so afraid of buying something that'll end up giving me 6 health points back. And the other thing I've noticed is, and we've talked about it because I messaged you about it because I was confused and didn't know if it was just me.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of items that you can pick up that cure status effects.
Yeah.
It's all, once you get hit, it's either you use your heal B or...
PSI healing beta. Or alpha.
Beta, thank you. And, or go to the hospital and get fixed.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I didn't have that, so it was, I got hit, and it was like, well, I've now lost this progress. I now must make my way back to the hospital to fix it because it's driving me nuts. So, there's a couple of things like that. I will say the status effects in this game are absurd in the level of difficulty they add to it.
Yeah.
In a good way. I mean, it brings difficulty to the game, but just the fact, like, you get, what am I thinking of, in the spaceship area or whatever, where you faced a big pile of junk, or blob monster.
Oh, pile of barf?
Pile of barf, thank you. But there's
Master Belch.
There's enemies in there, the little piles of barf, that will throw some gas up or whatever and blind or make all your guys cry.
Which is blind, yeah.
And then you spend the next 5 minutes trying to hit the damn thing. Because, like I said, in this game, the status effects mean a lot.
Yes.
It's not, well, you're blind, so now instead of hitting every time, you're going to hit every 3 out of 4. It's, now you're blind, so you're going to hit every 1 out of 4.
Yeah.
Which can be difficult and frustrating because Not because it makes the battles more difficult. That's awesome. But because there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah.
Because you have one character that has Healing B, which will, or Beta, which will take quite a bit of your magic points.
Yeah.
And until you level up, you don't have a lot of them. And he's also one of your strongest guys, so you're busy attacking. And
yeah. I will say, you're getting to the point where they stop relying on the status effects so much. It's been a while since I played Earthbound, and it's something I'm probably going to rectify soon, because for some reason, right after you told me you were going to do Earthbound for the first episode, like, every single person, like, 3 different people that I am also friends with online started to do playthroughs of the game. And everywhere I looked, it was Earthbound. So, I've been kind of, jonesing for my fix, so I may go back through and discover I'm completely misremembering things. But I just don't remember status effects being that prominent. I think you've just been getting incredibly unlucky, which happens. It's,
it's
RPGs, yeah.
Well, I will say, like, the blind thing happened a ton. The blind things are that battle only, and they'll go away after that battle. Yeah. So that's not as big of a deal. It's the mushroom effect.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's when I messaged you, because I could not get through this patch of land without fighting a mushroom who instantly would hit me with it.
Yeah.
And it basically will make your guy attack others, but not only that, but when you're in the open world map area, would make the controls do all sorts of wonky things.
Yeah.
And that just drove me nuts.
I think it's actually, it rotates the control pad 90 degrees every 90 seconds, which is, yeah. But,
which will get you.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's all nitpicky stuff. I'm very much enjoying the game. If you like old school RPGs, of course you're going to love Earthbound. It's different in a good way. Mm-hmm. But keeping the same old school RPG styles to it, and level up character, fight boss, move on to new section, level up more so you can beat the normal enemies, go fight boss, rinse and repeat. But, and the biggest nitpicky thing, the thing that throws me nuts, is there's a band in the game, which is called
The Runaway Five. Yep.
There's 6 members in that thing. Runaway 5, there's 6 people. Terrible error, guys. Come on, HAL Laboratories. Come on, Ape. I mean, really, you couldn't count to 6?
Damn it, Shigesato Itoi.
Come on.
But
no,
anyway.
But seriously, like I said, in 2 weeks when I have this game finished, I will mostly have praises. But for now, I just wanted to bring up some of the small things that have irritated me in my few hours of gameplay that I've got.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, kind of in defense, I guess I'm going to say, is you are going to have to get over that fear of buying things. For the most part, from the part of the game on, from where you are now, there's not very many trap, quote-unquote, items that you haven't already seen. So, you are going to have to get over to that shop phobia, because a lot of the stuff that you can buy now is going to start becoming useful. So,
yeah, and I will say, because I have been afraid to buy things, I have a ton of money.
Yeah.
Like, I go to, like, and that's the other thing I will say I like about the game, is every town is a number. Yeah. Or has something to do with a number. So I'm in
Foreside.
And it's like, literally, I go to a new town, I go to the department store, I pull out a little bit of the crazy amount of money I have in my ATM, and then buy the stuff. And it's like, it doesn't even affect me anymore, and I just upgrade quickly. So,
So
it does have its positives to be afraid to buy stuff.
Yeah. But, I'm looking forward to seeing what your final judgment is on Earthbound, because, like I said, it's one of my favorite games of all time. From one of my favorite games of all time to one that I'm starting to turn around a bit on, we're going to talk about my game now, and that's going to be The Legend of Dragoon for the PlayStation 1. Originally released June 11th, 2001. Developed by Sony Computer Entertainment Interactive, which is now Sony Computer Entertainment Japan Studio. And, of course, published by Sony because it was a first-party game. It was also released for the PlayStation Network as a PS1 classic in May of 2012. Quick story synopsis, because I have actually beaten this game and we'll be moving on to a new one for next episode. You play as Dart, and he's a swordsman returning home from a 5-year journey in pursuit of the Black Monster that killed his parents and burned down his birthplace of Neat 18 years ago, which, by the way, I fucking love that name. just like, I mean, I know it's supposed to be super serious and everything, but it's like, every time it gets mentioned, it's like, my hometown of Neat! It's like... But, so when Dart returns to his new hometown, he is quickly dragged into this civil war and then that quickly spirals into the final chapter of a conflict that's been, going on now, even behind the scenes, for 11,000 years. And, that's all the storyline I'm going to get into. Well, we might discuss a little bit of it, in regards to other areas later, but that's kind of a good synopsis to get you started on. When I first started playing this game, and you'll back me up on this because you were the venting board that I used.
Yes, we've talked about this several times over the last few weeks.
Yeah. When I first started this game, I absolutely hated it because there are a lot of mechanical... the word I'm going to use is nitpicks, because that's essentially what they are now that I've, beaten the game. Where I was just getting frustrated by the mechanics of the game, and there wasn't a lot of story to keep me engaged. And that's the thing about Legend of Dragoon, is it has quite possibly the slowest start, storyline-wise, I have ever seen in an RPG.
Well, then you haven't played Final Fantasy 13.
No, I haven't. I own it. But so it takes probably a good 10 to 15 hours, I would say, before Legend of Dragoon stops placing pieces on the board and starts moving them around, to kind of use a chess analogy. Dragoon spends a lot of time setting up, these are the players in the game. Now, here we go.
Yeah.
And until it starts going, there's not a lot of meat on the bones, I'm going, so to speak. So, you have to give it time to mature, or you're going to do what I almost did and just throw the game down in frustration. And I think that's kind of one of the good things about this project, is if I were not playing this for this podcast, I would have set it down before I even got off disc. Oh, I might have gotten to disc 2 before I set it down and went, fuck this, I'm done, I'm gonna go play something else. But because I had to finish it for this project, I powered through. And, once it got its hooks into me, I, shut up and actually played it through and beat it. And I'm actually going to say right now, if you're a fan of RPGs in general, you should play this game to completion.
That is surprising. Not surprising for the listeners right now, but for somebody who has had discussions with you over the last couple of weeks as we have prepped ourselves for this podcast.
Yeah.
I am very much surprised.
Yeah.
And that you have had such a turnaround. And
because
that is awesome.
Yeah, because, again, like I was saying, I was spending a lot of my time during discussions with you just going off about what I wasn't liking about this game. And while those complaints are still there, I find that, as I got a little more into the game, they became less of an issue for me. We already talked about the slow start of the game, which is bad. But because of that slow start, I was noticing things like the long load times, between going from, the world map to a random battle. And when I initially talked to you, I told you it took literally 10 to 15 seconds for that transition to occur, and the exact line I used was, I said, Final Fantasy IX wasn't that slow. Well, in the interim, I actually popped Final Fantasy IX back in and tested it, and I found that Final Fantasy IX has about the same amount of load time. And, didn't even really have much interesting to look at either during those load times. Yeah, the graphics looked a little bit better because Squaresoft was doing a bit better on the graphics by the time 9 rolled around.
Yeah.
Because Final Fantasy, Legend of Dragoon is more Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8 era. So, yeah, Final Fantasy 9 looked a bit nicer, but it was still kind of a very flat transition, which was the same problem I was having with Legend of Dragoon. So, yeah, I still don't like it, but I'm going to have to concede the point that it's, just kind of a product of the fact that they're on the PlayStation 1. They couldn't just pop stuff in. And then, just, even after getting to like the game and the storyline, one of the things I was not liking about Legend of Dragoon was, looking but not feeling epic. A lot of the things in Dragoon, Legend of Dragoon, I thought were designed to look epic, but the end result is that it doesn't feel epic.
So what do you mean by that?
Well, the spell animations, for example, whenever you cast a spell or go into Dragoon form, or an enemy casts a spell, are really, really long. Like, at one point in, near the end of Disc 3, one of the bosses you fight has a 40-second long spell animation.
So basically, it's a lot like some of the summons in Final Fantasy
before
they realize that they should let you skip them.
Yeah. But this is for spells. Stuff you're casting, like,
all the time.
All the time, yeah. Instead of just once a battle or something like summons would be.
Yeah.
So, and then I'd forgive the long animations on the player side if they were actually damaging, but a lot of the spells you'll sit there and they'll hit for their damage and you'll be sitting there going, really? I sat through, 15 seconds of animation for 150 damage.
So what you're saying is this is a wonderful game for people that like some, classic RPGs, like Final Fantasy and stuff like that, but want to eat nachos while they play.
Yeah.
Because this is the perfect snack game.
Yeah,
what you're trying to tell me. So I want to go through a couple things just real quick. So, I mean, we'll just base these on PS1 standards. Because obviously most PS1 games have not aged well.
Yeah.
But I just want to go through some things. So just scale of 1 to 10, where would you put it graphically compared to PS1 games?
I probably could put it at a good 7 or 8.
What about music and sound?
A little bit on the lower end. I'm at 5 or 6. I'm not, the music is, it has its moments, but there's not anything that I'm like, find myself humming, when I'm not playing.
Yeah, nothing.
Whereas,
memorable.
Final Fantasy VII, I'll sometimes hum, Battle Theme, or One Winged Angel sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Go ahead with the next category.
Is there voice acting in the game?
A little bit. The names of the additions in the battle system, every spell you do, every attack you do has a voice, and they'll like shout out the name of the attack when they finish it. They're passable, and then there are some voice acted cutscenes, FMVs.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh boy.
Not good for the time, or just haven't aged well?
I would probably have to say not good for the time. Because there's one point where Dart, the main character, asks something, and you can barely understand what he says, because he like goes 3 different directions of the line at once.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, okay, that happened.
Okay, you've talked a lot about the gameplay, so you'd probably put that middle of the road good, but takes forever.
Yeah.
Basically. Story, how would you rate the story? Because in RPGs, the story is as much as the battle system, a story is huge in these kind of games.
I'd probably give it a good 7 or 8 there as well, on story, because yes, it does take a little while to get going, but once it does, there are a few decent, twists in there. So, it's a fairly solid experience overall. And I found myself enjoying it a lot once things finally got started. to go back, did you have any other categories for me?
I got one more, but go ahead.
We're going to go back kind of what we were talking about before you started doing the review score thing with me. And it's another aspect of looking but not feeling epic. One of the things that I found myself getting a little frustrated with is backtracking. It happens a lot. It's part of every RPG. It happens. But Legend of Dragoon takes it to a whole nother level of backtracking. There is, at points on Disc 2 and Disc 3, you will find yourself having to go from point A to point B. And there are literally 3 dungeons between point A and point B. And you have to walk back through all of them.
So you can't just skip over it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to go through leave town A, go through dungeon B, come back onto the world map, go to dungeon C, go through dungeon C, back onto the world map to finally town B.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, and random encounters are happening the entire way. And then once you get to town B, you'll do what you need to do in town B, and then they'll go, oh hey, you need to go back to town A now.
Yeah, thanks for showing up.
Yeah. And it happens on Disc 2, it's an area called the Barrens you'll be seeing a lot of. Disc 3, it's the Evergreen Forest you'll be seeing a lot of. And it's just endless. It felt endless to me, and it felt really bad because, again, I haven't played a lot of the PS1 era stuff in a while, so maybe I'm just misremembering. But I don't remember that level of backtracking being present in any of the Final Fantasies.
So would you account that more as far as bad game design, or them just trying to pad it out?
I would... honestly, that's probably a little half a dozen from column A, 6 from column B, okay. I'm going to say. Because, again, I think they wanted to make it feel epic, look epic, but they didn't quite have a grasp of, feeling epic without frustrating the hell out of the player.
Okay, and then the last question I got for you is difficulty. Like, is it going to be difficult for let's say, somebody who hasn't played PS1 era RPGs? Are they going to be able to grasp the battle systems and stuff? Are the bosses going to overpower them if they don't level up or don't grind? Or do you think it paces itself really well?
I don't really. It paces itself pretty well. If you don't have a very good grasp of rhythm, you're going to probably have difficulty with the regular attacks because the regular attacks are rhythm based to an extent. It's called the addition system, and basically what'll happen is you'll choose your attack, and icon will come in from the top of the screen, zoom in from the screen. Edges of the screen to the middle of the screen. And once it reaches the box at the middle of the screen, you have to time your button press. And you'll do that, for some of the later editions, you'll be doing that 6 times in one attack.
So this is RPG Hero.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. With one button, thankfully. Well, actually, no, 2 buttons, because some enemies can try to counter you, and you'll have to watch for the tail and hit circle instead of X. But, so if you're bad with timing like that, you're going to have some issues with the regular battle system. But, as far as once getting past that, if you have a grasp of that, I did not have issues with it, but then again, I very rarely run from fights in RPGs in general. If you're running away from fights and not leveling up, then you're going to have problems. But as long as you're fighting, a majority of the encounters you face and, doing well with the battle system, I didn't really have issues with any of the regular bosses. There are a couple of optional bosses that can stonewall you, yes, especially if you use the wrong strategy. But, it's very rare that you're going to have a case where a boss kicks your ass and then you have to get through 20 minutes of cutscene. Because they're very generous with save points near bosses.
Good. Okay.
So it's pretty easy, I'm going to say.
So you would recommend it to RPG fans, but maybe not newcomers to the genre?
No, probably not newcomers. Well, actually, I'm going to say yes, because, really, I think a large part of the difficulty of the battle system is being able to time additions. And once you manage that, and as long as you're not running away from fights, you should do fine.
Okay.
As long as you're also good at inventory management, because I still do find that a bit annoying. I don't really think that they designed the game around inventory management, but you're still going to have to find yourself doing it a lot, because you only can carry 32 items, period. And that fills up quickly. So, yeah, that about does it for Dragoon. I enjoyed it a lot. Even if a lot of the things I was saying just now were mostly negative, but it's just kind of small stuff that, for the most part, was product of the PS1 era.
Yes. Absolutely. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on and give a quick preview of the stuff that you can expect in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Obviously, I will still be working on Earthbound. I hope to be moved in a couple of days so I can really pound through the game and finish it before the next time.
Yep.
We alluded to it earlier.
Yep, we did.
We are both going to play Hotline Miami, and I think we're both kind of excited about it.
Yeah.
And Wes, since you finally got through Dragoon, it took you a month and a half or so.
Yeah.
You finally get to play a new game.
Yay!
And you, sir, have decided to play.
Well, the Backloggery decided for me. I used the fortune cookie feature. I'm going to be playing The Cave on PlayStation Network, specifically the PlayStation 3. It is a puzzle platformer released on January 22nd of 2013. It was produced by the fine gentleman at Double Fine Productions. See what I did there? Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, that was the studio created by LucasArts legend Tim Schafer. And the game was also directed by Ron Gilbert, who is also known for the Monkey Island series of games.
And I, for one, am very interested in what you think of the game, because I have not played this game either, so I'm curious if you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah. I seem to remember it getting a fair bit of kind of, buzz when it came out, and then it very quickly dropped off a cliff. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I'm actually kind of excited to play it, and honestly, I'm just glad it's not another 40-hour RPG, because I own a lot of those. Anyway, now that we've kind of discussed our games for the week, we're going to close out the proceedings, as it were. We're going to take a look at some of the stories of the last couple weeks with regards to gaming news. And we're going to start off with a game that's very near and dear to me. Doesn't quite make my top 5 hobby shapers, but it's still one of my childhood memories. The ToeJam and Earl series. One of the series co-creators recently took to Kickstarter to fund a true sequel to the first ToeJam and Earl game. It's called Back in the Groove, and oh my god, yes! is about all I can say about it, because the original ToeJam and Earl is just this perfect blend of, everything that made the 90s, and a really good roguelike game. And not to say that the second game was at all bad, it was just different, because the second game, as a lot of people are aware, Panic on Funkatron, was a side-scrolling platformer for some reason. Because basically Sega said, hey, 2D platformers are in, can you do that for the next game?
Yeah.
And he, the gentleman, Greg Johnson, I think his name is, goes into it on his Kickstarter pitch. He says, we wanted to just make another roguelike for the second game, but then Sega came in and said, hey, could you do a side-scrolling platformer with ToeJam and Earl? And since they were paying the bills, we did that. And then the third game, which is just bad, and was original Xbox exclusive, he says, we wanted to make a 3D iteration of the original ToeJam and Earl. And they said, can you make something like, can you make a 3D platformer like Banjo-Kazooie or whatever with ToeJam and Earl? And since they were paying the bills, we did that. So to see him finally go to Kickstarter to make a modernized version of the original roguelike game, I think I'm not the only person I know I'm not the only person in the world going, yes!
Well, hopefully yes. I mean, you have to be worried. May not be the same. It's one of those things where it's like, you really wanted it for so long, the expectations are going to be up there for the loyal fans. But I'd be excited to see a new ToeJam and Earl. I haven't really played any of the originals. I mean, it wasn't near and dear to my heart like you. It wasn't one of my childhood games. But I'd be interested to see how it would work this time.
Yeah. One of the just broke today, actually, news was that Valve, as has long been expected, is jumping into the virtual reality headset game. And they're actually going to partner with HTC to release a headset. It's called the HTC Vive, I believe. And will be coming out in the fall of this year, which is pretty much Valve and HTC stamping their foot in the sand, drawing a line in the sand and going, come at me, bro, to Oculus and Facebook.
But I don't know. This whole Oculus Rift stuff and all the other things that are coming out with it, I guess part of me is excited if it gets worked out well, but I would rather all these smart guys get together and just make one really good one.
Yeah.
Because instead of 4 really shitty ones that we were going to have in this iteration, and I'm worried that we're going to have these 4 things come out, like the Oculus Rift and the thing that Valve's working on, and the thing that
Microsoft HoloLens,
the HoloLens, and they're all going to fail and be things like the Virtual Boy did, and then we're going to go, we don't need that. Yeah. And we're just going to leave it at that. So, no, I'm not really interested yet. I mean, it will be a long time before I have one of those things on my head, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been seeing, like the Penny Arcade guys, talked about Oculus, and they have Oculus dev kits and etc. And they've been, talking about their experiences with it, and, there's been a lot of positive stuff I've been seeing, and HoloLens, especially, when it first was announced, I remember reading a lot of positive, press on it.
HoloLens definitely, from everything that I've read, is getting all positive. There's not a lot of negatives towards that yet. But.
Yeah. But, so, if it's executed correctly, I'm intrigued, I'm on board. The thing is, and how should I put this? Valve does not half-ass things.
No, they just never release anything.
Yeah. And that's part of the problem is I think Valve has a lot of perfectionists in its ranks.
Yes, absolutely.
And they are not going to release a substandard product. See the wait for Half-Life 2, and then, the wait for Half-Life 3 or, anything from
3.
them. Yeah.
Anything
3, yeah. But, once they do release something, it's going to be good. So if they are confident enough in this headset to release it this fall, they must be onto something, is my logic on it. So it'll be interesting to see where that kind of heads out, I think.
Absolutely. I'm curious. Like I said, it'll probably be a long time until I ever buy any of these, but
yeah.
I'm curious to see what other people think. And speaking of a company that takes forever these days to come out with something, Square Enix, Final Fantasy 15. Yep. Is it ever going to come out?
It's looking a lot closer to reality nowadays than it was back in the time when it was called Final Fantasy Versus 13. But, the games director, and I'm blanking on his name right now, we'll add it in the show notes, but, the games director recently said, that Final Fantasy 15 was at about 60% done. which, wow.
Well, okay. So, I mean, we can all make fun of it because, Square Enix these days, doesn't have the best reputation. The Final Fantasy games have struggled.
Yeah.
They're definitely not the way that we remember the old school ones, and they haven't worked out as well.
Yeah.
But I will say this, I am very happy that he's honest about it, if he is. If it really is about 60%, and they feel like they're a bit past the halfway point.
Yeah.
I
think
love the honesty, but because, like I said, I was making fun of Heist before.
Mm-hmm.
Heist were probably 30-40% done when they were like, hey, it's going to come out in the spring, and then it doesn't. So at least he's not going, hey, it's coming out next year.
Yeah.
He's just going, listen, we're 60% down, we're trying to get through it.
Yeah.
And you gotta commend him for that.
Well, this is the same guy that turned Final Fantasy XIV, which was a gigantic clusterfuck when it originally released, and turned it into A Realm Reborn, which by all accounts is actually a pretty damn good MMO nowadays. But, he turned Final Fantasy XIV with a graphics base that was literally a flower pot had the same amount of polygons as the player character in the original build of Final Fantasy XIV. To kind of give you an idea of how ass backwards they were handling things in Final Fantasy XIV originally. He turned it from that into A Realm Reborn, and now he's, turned his attention to Final Fantasy XV. And, I believe the exact quote he mentioned something like, we've gotten all the hard stuff out of the way, and now it's just kind of getting the rest of the content through. And, and on the surface, you sit there and go, it's 60% done, and you've been working on it for how long? Because, we've known about Final Fantasy Versus 13 for a while.
Yes.
And we've known about Final Fantasy 15 for a while now.
Well, since E3.
Yeah. Who knows if that 60% figure is counting all that dev time from Versus 13, or if he came in and went, pfft.
Yeah, I mean, and absolutely, who knows if when they announced at E3 that Versus 13 was turning into 15, if they didn't just take Versus 13 and go, never mind.
Yeah.
Now we have 15. So,
yeah.
I mean, if they're 60% done and they reworked a ton since April, then we can be excited.
I think the main indicator is we are going to have a demo of 15 coming out with Final Fantasy Type 0 HD, which comes out later this month, I believe. If you buy that, you get access to the Final Fantasy 15 demo episode Dusque, or however the hell you say that. Which, that's another thing that annoys me about Square Enix nowadays, is everything has a subtitle where that needs a pronunciation guide. Like, the City of Final Fantasy Duodecim, or Theatrhythm. Yeah.
Yes. I love that game. I played the first one of those.
Yeah, Theatrhythm is good, but still, it's just kind of like, okay, that's a word. Yeah. So, if episode Dusque is good, then I think people will be, a bit more forgiving about the long dev time. But if there are problems with it, oh boy, it's going to be interesting to see how Square Enix reacts to that if the Final Fantasy 15 demo pisses people off.
Yes.
From that now to, business charts, because why the hell not?
Numbers!
Yeah, numbers. Some analysts are now claiming that the PlayStation 4 install base will exceed that of the Xbox One by 40% by 2019, which is an incredible number. I mean, that's just a boggling gap.
Honestly, this whole generation has been kind of mind-boggling because, I mean, I've been more of a Sony guy.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna mix words. I mostly buy Sony products. But, the last gen was so dominated by the 360, and they seemed to do everything right, and the online community was so strong. Like, anytime a game would come out for both, like, say Madden, would come out for the PS3 and the 360, everyone I knew would get it for the 360, not because they thought the system was better, but they knew the online community was so much better, so they would find better competition.
Right.
Or more people to play. And it, for whatever reason, I mean, obviously, like we were talking about earlier, the DRM situation really hurt Xbox and stuff, but to me, I don't think it killed sales as much as a lot of people were thinking. Yes, it made them look terrible at E3, but most consumers don't watch E3, so they had no clue. But for such a monumental switch from last gen to this gen, where Sony is now just dominating the charts, when, to be honest, I don't think either system really has those amazing games yet. We're still in the birth period.
Yeah.
So predictions like this are just that. They're predictions, and all I think it will do with Microsoft is make them go, okay, we need a big splash at E3.
Well,
or a big splash in something else.
Yeah.
So they're going to probably change the way they look at things. But still, just to look at some of the numbers, and just the legit numbers that have come out so far are crazy.
Well, to kind of go a little bit off topic from this particular blog post, but this analysis, to go back to what you were just saying about Microsoft needs to make a splash at this E3, I think they were trying to do that at last E3, because they realized they had an uphill battle on their hands, and they tried, and they didn't really quite get there last year. And I think they're going to try again this year. But they've been trying to dig themselves out. They just haven't succeeded yet.
Yeah, and it's really weird how console wars kind of go in general.
Yeah.
Because it's almost, from what I have noticed over the years, that the start is so much more important than anything.
Yeah.
Because if you start out behind, you're going to stay behind.
Well, kind of perfect example of this is, we were talking about this earlier as well, off microphone, but one of the things I brought up was I felt like that this current generation, the PS4, Xbox One generation, was a reversal of the PS3, Xbox 360 generation, because the PS3 came off the success that was the PlayStation 2, and Sony kind of got, a little big-headed, stuff like the boomerang controller. If you remember, the original design for the DualShock 3 was this, like, boomerang, looking thing, and then, stuff like $599 US, the exorbitant price point, and Sony basically going, we did so well with the PlayStation 2, now you're going to take all we're doing and like it, and Microsoft going, or you could do this for $200 cheaper, and we've got all these games, and this is going on. And then to see the next generation start with Microsoft riding off the tails of the 360 being, fairly victorious in that generation, going, we're going to do this DRM scheme, and we're going to do this, and you're going to like it. And Sony saw that and went, well, we know how to beat this because you did it to us last generation, and taking that playbook and going with it. Cheaper system, more powerful system with, more indie games. Was very interesting for me to see. And, just that reversal is something I've always found interesting.
Yeah.
And now, I noticed you were staring very intently at the chart just now. Something you would like to share with the rest of the class there. Randy.
Yeah, well, I was looking at the last gen one, and obviously this is, okay, so, people can't see this chart, maybe you can put it in the show notes, whatever. Yeah. But I'm guessing these are units sold that year, because obviously they go down.
It's their installed base by platform. So I think that's like, if I remember it, it's just basically how many systems they would assume are in homes by then. Which is why it goes down, because people sell them or replace.
I just never remember PlayStation catching. Like, I know, like, the PS3 would outsell the 360 for a month for just everything sold that month. But this chart has the PS3 beating the Xbox One.
Your Xbox 360.
Yeah, excuse me, the Xbox 360, which I did not know. So I just was looking at it going, okay, am I reading this chart wrong? But
I don't think you are, but again, though, the 360...
So maybe last gen, in my mind, was completely different.
Yeah, honestly, I just realized that, too. I'm taking a look at it now and kind of going, But, so that might be another thing that kind of comes up in the blog or on Twitter, sort of thing. So that is going to about wrap things up for this first episode of the Backlog Busting Project. If you have any constructive criticism whatsoever, we are always happy to hear it. You can comment on backlogbusting.com. Tweet us at backlogbusting. Let's see here. Anything else I'm missing? Well, all of our contact information that we want to make public is going to be on backlogbusting.com. So we'd love to hear your criticism, suggestions, or just thoughts about some of the issues we've raised today.
Well, or if you guys think that there's a game that we have to play.
Oh,
we would love to hear different games that you guys loved as a kid, old school, new school, whatever. And we will definitely take it into considerations of games to talk about in the future.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say right now that I know there are a couple games that I own that are considered classics by, the internet at large that I have not beaten yet. Like, there are games that I've played for a while. You know what? I'll just come out right out and say it. Final Fantasy VII. I played probably to near the end back in the PlayStation 1 era. Like, back when it was still current. And then I lost my copy of the game and lost my memory card. And I always, I bought it pretty much right off. One of the first games I bought when I bought a PS3 on the PlayStation Network was Final Fantasy VII. And I always said I would get around to finally beating it. But I never have. So I'm sure a lot of people are sitting there going, holy fucking shit. Basically reacting to me the way I reacted to you with Earthbound.
And you called yourself a gamer. I mean, I don't even know who I'm talking to anymore. No. But, again, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah. Well, honestly, with Final Fantasy VII, I think it's more of, I know the main twist of that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I remember a lot of how that game goes. It's not like I've, never played it in my life. It's just I never saw the credits roll.
Yeah.
So, that I guess that's kind of a poor example of it. But, at any rate, that is for another episode, another time. And until we see you again, which will be 2 weeks from today, as Will Wheaton once said, play more games.
See you in 2 weeks.